Okay, so anyways, I've been practicing 30 years now. When I first came out of chiropractic school, I had the honor of practicing with some of the most well-renowned medical doctors and chiropractors and nutritionists and PhDs. And what happened during that time is that a cancer type of screening. Anyone ever hear of Kelly, Dr. Kelly out of Texas? Well, he cured it, no one has, right? Okay, I'm going to look for this kind of motion or that motion from you guys, all right? I like feedback. But if you're not awake, I'll throw this at you to wake you up, okay? So when I got into this, it was the aspect of really about, well, what causes the body to go into the malfunction state, right? Now, what we did is we did actually testing back then, that's 30 years ago, to find out how the health of an individual is. Were they developing cancer? Were they predisposed to cancers? Were they developing things like that? Well, I went through all the testing myself at that time, and that piqued my interest in this other avenues. I sat down with doctors that were doing what we call IV chelation. Anyone ever hear of that? No. Has anyone ever heard of IV nutrition? Like IV, what we call IV, which means it's going to go in through, the arteries as far as like vitamin C, DMSO. Anyone ever heard of that? No. Okay, so a lot of different things. But these are different things that these doctors were doing, and some of these doctors were even thrown in jail for practicing a different kind of medicine that wasn't in the parameters of what we call general mainstream medicine. Okay? So I got into this because my cousin developed multiple sclerosis. You've heard of multiple sclerosis, right? What is it? What's the cause? Anybody know? No. 30 years ago they didn't know, or when I did my study back when I was going for my bachelor's degree, and they didn't know then, and they know exactly the same thing today. We don't know what causes that. But the reality is that it is an immune system response, okay? Whether you call it multiple sclerosis, whether you call it lupus, you've heard of lupus, whether you call it rheumatoid arthritis, whether you call it any of the other degenerative diseases, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, God forbid, dementia, those type of things, what it all is, and what everyone will agree on today, is that it is an inflammatory process going on in your body that's basically out of control. Now, what's the body designed to do? What's the body designed to do from the standpoint of healing? What is it designed to do? Pardon me? Fight it. Heal itself, right? Right on, Barbara. It's designed to heal itself. Well, why our bodies are going through this attack? Well, now the attack is greater than ever. In the history of this country, this generation, this young generation today, is the first generation that will not outlive their parents. Did you know that? Anybody know that? Yeah, this is the reality of what's going on. And we're seeing kids, 8, 10, 13. I'm seeing thyroid problems in young girls, 13, 14 years of age, all kinds of things. Now, that's why I put up these terminology. Endocrinology, alternative medicine. You've heard of these, right? Yes. You've heard of holistic medicine. You've heard of bioidentical hormones. I'm sure. Have you heard about that at all? Suzanne Summers, for example. I'm going to use her as an example. Everybody can relate to her. She's in this hormones as far as staying young, and doing this and that. I had a gal in today with thyroid problems, and her problem that she went to see these doctors that were doing bioidentical hormones. They threw her into a hyper state of thyroidism. Hyper, you know what hyper is? Like Graves, huh? Yeah. That's what they threw her into. It's like, that's the last thing you want to be working on is hormones. You got to go ahead and balance out all systems before you start working on the hormones, because you create other problems. So the youth, it's not going to come from you taking hormones. You know what it's going to come from? Young, youth, us wanting to stay young. How many people want to stay young? I think we all can agree on that, right? We all want to stay young. It's going to come from within. Okay, that's where it's going to come from. What we put into our bodies, what we feed our bodies, what we nourish our bodies, how our body is then going to go ahead and manufacture all the different enzymes, amino acids, proteins, everything that it needs to do to work properly. Now, where is the majority of our immune system located? Anyone know? Come on, you can guess and be wrong. I mean, we all do it.
Pituitary gland.
Pituitary gland. Okay, that's a good one, but no. Anyone else? Go ahead.
Well, I'm thinking metabolism with your thyroid.
There you go. Okay, the immune system, thyroid, yes, but that's not right. Go ahead, Wendy.
Your lymph nodes?
Lymph nodes. Well, that's part of the immune system. That's kind of like, that's like the garbage disposal. So that's designed to clean things up. Go ahead.
Digestion.
Huh?
Digestion.
Oh boy, you hit the nail on the head. She's right. Okay, so your gut is where approximately 50 to 70% of your immune system is located. 50 to 70% of your immune system. So guess where the hormones are going to be manufactured? You already gave the answer.
Digestion.
Yeah, gut, right? All the amino acids and everything is going to be going through the digestion as well as the breaking down, the manufacturing, everything that you need. But we got to get the system really balanced because there's a lot going on with the system. Now, how many people think that they are suspect that they might have a blood sugar handling problem? What we call hypoglycemia or hyperglycemia, but not yet hyperglycemia, because hyperglycemia would be diagnosed or classified as diabetes. So let's give you an example. Let's say that you have a tendency, if you skip meals, you get a little bit irritable, you get a little edgy, you get a little upset, even you notice that as far as from an emotional standpoint. Or you have problems where you go into this almost like an anxiety type of state. Anybody notice that at all? Huh? No? Okay, some of you do. But that's a blood sugar handling problem. What does that mean? Well, that means that your blood sugar is not being handled properly. And if your blood sugar is not being handled properly, guess what? Your hormones, they're out of sync too. See, it goes hand in hand. Okay, then we get into the functional medicine. That's what we practice. So remember I said 30 years ago I got into this because of the fact that my cousin developed multiple sclerosis. Multiple sclerosis, his system just went from being a healthy, supposedly healthy individual, because do you know there is no test that can tell us if we are 100% healthy, 90% healthy, 80%? Do you understand that? And by the time we actually have symptoms, you know what level you're functioning at 0 to 100%? Guess. Come on.
20%.
You're right, about 20 to 30%. That's about it. So when you have symptoms, you're functioning at 20 to 30%. Is that bad? Can your car, think about this, can your car operate at 20%? 8-cylinder, pull off, 6 out of the 8, right? Is it going to operate? I don't think it's going to start. But that's how magnificent the body is, because the body's designed to cover things up. It's designed to work no matter what. So when we have the systems that are shut down, now we get something that's going on. Thyroid, right? Well, the thyroid we know is important in metabolism. It's also important in the aspect as far as protection. Protection against many of the cancers, because what they associate when the thyroid's not working well, with the women in particular, but it's happening to men too, are susceptible to breast cancer. Isn't that amazing? Really? Yes, absolutely. So a lot of the cancers will happen as a result of that. That's why it's important to dial this in. So my cousin went through this just gradual, no remission. He went from walking, having a young family, of having young kids, his wife left him, okay, to not, to being his parents taking care of him, went to a cane, to a wheelchair, to bedridden, and then, died. Because nobody knew. And again, they don't know what the deal is today. But there's a lot of factors involved. A lot of factors being this, is that you might hear about certain things as far as in our foods. Do you know that Monsanto, you ever hear of Monsanto? Monsanto, the chemical company. They basically control our agriculture here. So Monsanto has a monopoly on the wheat grain. And it's interesting because we see some patients that are farmers, like in Idaho and that, and so we always are asking them information. But here you have a company like Monsanto that is a monopolizer of that wheat grain, and what they've done is they've taken the wheat germ and they put in a pesticide within to that wheat germ. So what do we call that? Anybody know? Genetic modification. You ever hear that? GMO, genetic modification. Now the thing is we don't even know what the ramifications of that is to our body. But it is detrimental. Everybody will agree to that. We're seeing that with the youth. We're seeing that with adults. So now we have a situation where Monsanto doesn't even want to have to label their product as a genetically modified organism. Why do they want to do that? What do you think, Wendy?
You want people to believe it's healthy?
Yeah, because they're going to say, wow, that's genetically modified. I'm not going to buy that, right? Would you think so? I would think so. I mean, just as kind of like not totally understanding the whole realm of magnification, I'd say, well, that probably isn't a good idea. But they want to, they want to get it so that they don't even have to label it that way. They're trying to get into Europe. Do you understand that Europe doesn't have any genetic modification, or it's minimal compared to the United States? Big time. They're trying to get into France right now, and they're trying to put on some pressure. It's amazing what money does. So we have that pesticide in the wheat germ, right? A genetic modification going on. Now, once it gets into your body can tell the difference between something that's normal and abnormal. How does your body react to that? You know what it does? It sets off an alarm. You ever hear an alarm you couldn't shut off, driving you nuts? It's kind of like that alarm is going on in your body. How does your body respond to that? The immune system goes up, right? Shouldn't the immune system go up? Because it's a foreign substance. Now we go into a systemic inflammatory response. Systemic inflammatory response.
Is that what celiac disease is?
That's one of them. But you know what? You can have the gluten sensitivity and not be celiac yet. So there you go. She answered that. The gluten, right?
Yes.
Now, this is what we see. We see a lot of patients that have had what we call the celiac panel. You ever hear of the celiac panel? How many have had that done? You've
No,
had
I
it
haven't
done.
had it. My daughter.
You haven't had it
My
done.
daughter has
You've had,
it.
okay. So you could be negative, what we call a false negative on the celiac panel, because the celiac panel is a 1960s model, but they're not willing to change. Because they're not getting all these different cells in there to prove that the person has possibly celiac. But you can have gluten sensitivity and not have celiac. Now, that kind of concerned me. My cousin died of multiple sclerosis. What do we know genetics? Is there a likelihood of other family members that have the same thing?
Yes.
You think I'm in a hurry to have it?
No.
I did all the testing. I have gluten sensitivity. I have gluten sensitivity. I have an autoimmune reaction to gluten. What does that mean? That means that my body's going into a haywire type of effect like we talked about earlier, where the body just goes into this alarm state, inflammation is created. Now, what is the most sensitive organ in your body? The most sensitive organ in your body. Guess again. Come on. Who cares if we're right or wrong? It doesn't matter.
I'd say my heart is.
Your heart. Okay? No. Come on. Huh?
Your thyroid.
Thyroid? No, but you're close.
Intestines.
No.
Okay.
No. The most sensitive, when we have a systemic inflammatory process, it's the brain. So where's the attack? The attack is on the brain. Isn't that scary? Now, what do we hear about that we've never heard about before? Dementia and Alzheimer's, don't we? Well, what do they say? Well, it's because people are living longer. Well, that's true, but you know what? That's still not the correct thing. You know? It's just like people that have to get up to go to the bathroom during the night. How many people have to get up to go to the bathroom during the night?
Sometimes.
Okay, sometimes. That's not normal. But what have you been told? It's normal, right? It's a normal part of the aging process. It's not. What it's telling us is, I don't care about how much water you drink. I'll drink a lot of water before I go to bed. And if your body's working well, you're going to have to just, when you get up in the morning, you have to go bad. You know, you might sit on the toilet or stand up a little bit longer. That's all. But what happens is, when you have to get up to go to the bathroom at night, it's a sign that you've got systemic inflammation going on. That's what it is. The body's not working properly. You now are weakening different muscles, tissues, glands, organs in the body. Isn't that interesting?
Mm-hmm.
I just studied with a doctor, a PhD, MD, doctor of chiropractic, doctor of Oriental medicine degree. This guy loves school. I mean, I thought I loved school, you know? But this guy just loves the information. And you know, it was kind of interesting because we were exchanging a lot of ideas at this seminar that I was just at this past weekend. And you know, we agreed on a lot of different things, you know, and he was giving me some interesting, you know, things to think about, and I was giving him some interesting things. Here's a medical doctor that's a PhD that's done a heck of a lot of research. He broke his hip skiing. I injured my hip skiing, same thing. He's, you know, he of course doesn't want to have a hip replacement. He's trying to avoid that because of the fact that your body could react to the metals. You might have heard of that, you know, the plastics and things like that. I'm in no hurry to get a hip replacement myself, so I've been managing with, you know, nutrition, supplementation, reducing inflammation, and all that. So the whole thing is that anything we put into our body always has a negative consequence as far as when we talk about drugs. Because what are the drugs going to do? They're going to compromise the gut. You know, when you said that, you know, when we compromise the gut, we create a more of an inflammatory process going on. Even acetaminophen, okay? You know that? Ibuprofen, right? It's supposed to, you know, supposed to help you. That's the #1 reason that people are having, you know, liver and kidney transplants. Do you know that? And it's even a small amount. They don't know the amount that's, you know, that just brings you over the edge, God forbid, because it's an accumulative effect. It stays and recycles in that liver. So gluten sensitivity is a big, huge thing. Why? Because gluten specifically is a molecule that is similar in structure to the thyroid tissue. And so what does that mean? Well, if your body sees and recognizes that gluten is something abnormal, right? It's going to want to munch it down like Pac-Man. Remember that? Mario Brothers, remember that? Mario Brothers? Okay? Okay, so we have that. Can't find too many gums out there. Well, so when we have the gluten that's entering in the body, and because the body's going to recognize that, hey, this is not good for me, we need to go ahead and start munching that down. Because it can't differentiate between gluten and it can't differentiate between the thyroid, your thyroid's also being munched down. So what does that mean? Well, that means you're going to go through periods of time what we call hypo and hyper. Well, I feel better today. Oh, I don't feel that great now. Oh, I feel great. Oh, no. So what other type of symptoms might, because this is mostly about the thyroid, but you understand that this is not just one system in the body now? You understand that, how complex it is? It's not just about one system. So if we have the gluten, we know that the thyroid's under assault. We know that we're going to go through periods of what we call hypo and hyper. Now think about those things that people will have, like anxiety, right? How many people are put on medications for depression, anxiety, panic attacks? So many. And to give you a little history, so this is interesting because in our family, you know, my parents lived a relatively long period of time. My dad till 95, my mother until 88. But our father, basically, he never did any drugs at all. Never. Not a single aspirin or hardly anything, right? Well, our mother and her sisters, how many, 6 sisters? I think 6 sisters. They all had depression, anxiety, panic attacks, and all this. All that. They went to the medical doctors, referring to psychiatrists and things like that. They were put on all kinds of different drugs. But you know what? Now that I've got the wheels turning, right, understanding this whole mechanism, they had thyroid problems that were undetected. They couldn't lose weight. They had all the different classic signs. Metabolism, lack of energy, you know, those type of problems, hormonal imbalances, blood sugar handling problems, dry skin, irritation in your skin, rashes, things of that nature. This is all thyroid. This is immune system response. All that. They had those type of problems, but what? They didn't know, because you can't just look at TSH. Do you know what TSH is? A thyroid stimulating hormone. You can't just look at that and say, well, that's within normal parameters, so you're okay. You can't look at that. There's much more to the picture. Now, Wendy, do you have a thyroid problem when you were diagnosed? How long ago?
About 10 years ago.
Hypo?
I was hyper. I had Graves' disease.
Oh, you had Graves' disease. Did you have your thyroid removed?
I had it corrected with radioactive iodine.
Okay, killed off. Okay. So this is what we're seeing now. We see patients that have had their thyroids killed off, or they've been put on a drug for Graves' disease as a result to try to reset it. And you could be on that drug, do you know how long?
Rest of my life.
No. But that drug you can only be on like 18 months actually, because then they want to kill it
Right,
off,
yeah.
okay? Because the drug is so toxic to your liver and kidneys, it does irreparable damage. We got a patient that's what happened to her. So when you're on that drug, if it doesn't reset, then you get your thyroid killed off, you know. But many times they'll just go right into the killing off of the radioactive iodine, or they're going to want to surgically remove it. But does that mean that the problem's solved? No. The problem's not solved.
It's worse. My sister was worse.
Your sister, yeah. So
She
see the
developed cancer of the thyroid.
see here the genetics in here, the genetic role in here, how that is. And so remember, the genetics are becoming more diluted, over time. That's why we got to fix ourselves. That's what it's all about, is fixing ourselves, because God forbid you have kids, what are you doing? You're passing on your weakness. But the neat thing is we know that there's a situation called epigenetics. You ever hear that terminology? Epigenetics. Now, we got some young people in here. Don't ever have kids until you get healthy. Don't even think about having kids until you get healthy. Because I'll tell you, that's a mistake people make. They go, oh, let's just have kids. Well, I'll tell you, you better get healthy first. That's what it's all about. So that's what we do, is help people get healthy before they have kids. You want to have kids? You want to have kids with autism, ADD, ADHD, and all these other things? Do you know that, what is it? Autism, right? They said was 1 in 120. They're wrong. You know what they recently corrected that? It's 1 in 80. Can you imagine the burden that places on a family? It's like having a Down syndrome or some other type of child, God forbid. But that's why we got to look at getting healthy before. Not saying, well, I'm healthy. You really don't know the impact. Look at your parents and see if they have any problems. So epigenetics means that we can get healthier. We can change the DNA. Isn't that cool? That's very exciting. But what does it mean? It means we got to get healthy. We got to get healthy. We got to do those things that are necessary. Now remember, I brought up alternative, I brought up holistic. How many people have looked and searched for different answers? Have you done that, Wendy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How about you? Is it Rosie?
Yes.
Rosie, I like that name. Our aunt was
Aunt Rose.
Aunt Rose. Okay. So you've done the same thing, you're looking and searching for different answers. How about you?
Yes.
Yes. How about you?
Yes.
Are you searching for your family as well, or is it about you? Because it seems like there's.
Well, I didn't develop it until after I was 30.
Yeah.
And I had my children young,
Right.
and my children had not had that illness. But my sister had it,
Yes.
and she failed to keep taking her thyroid,
Yeah.
and then it developed into cancer at the
God
age of 30.
forbid. Yeah.
And she had the iodine uptake,
Right.
and had to
Kill
have it
them off.
removed,
Yeah, I know
and she
that.
could never get it
Balance
regulated
after
her
that.
body enough.
Because here's what's going on. You have an autoimmune situation going on. Most 80% of the hypothyroid people have what we call an autoimmune thyroid problem. That means, now what does that mean? Let me ask you this. What does that mean? What does that mean to you when we say it's an autoimmune problem? What does that mean? Give me a condition that's an autoimmune problem, Wendy.
Rheumatoid arthritis.
There you go, beautiful. What's another one?
That's what I was thinking.
Lupus, okay?
Lupus.
How about another one? You know, we can name them all. We could name every single one of these type of
Well, I
problems.
developed an intestinal problem.
Yeah, so leaky gut, autoimmune problem. You could say that. You know, there's so many different problems that are autoimmune problems. Dementia, Alzheimer's, you could say that's an autoimmune problem, because what's the body doing? It's attacking itself. So a lot of things that they're not. How about gout? See, gout's an autoimmune problem. What is the body doing? It's reacting on itself, isn't it? You ever see someone that has gout? You know, the joint will swell up, maybe big toe, could be elbow, wrist, could be knee, could be anything. But it's an autoimmune problem. This is what's not being addressed and never is being addressed, the autoimmune component. And unless you address the autoimmune component, you will never get healthy. And that's what we're addressing, is the autoimmune component. Because medically, this is the only thing that can be done for you from the standpoint of the autoimmune is corticosteroids. Prednisone, you've heard of that? God forbid? That's devastating stuff. That does not do any good. Because now you get a meltdown of your bone structure and everything else, glands and organs. It's only to be used in emergency situations. But when we have this autoimmune situation, we got to go ahead and find out what's attacking the body and then get rid of that, right? That assault. Now, where is your body's repairing process going to come from? Where is it going to come from? It's going to come from the foods we eat and everything we put in our body, right? Because it's only with everything that we're putting in our body and what we're doing as far as lifestyle changes that we can make the necessary changes to get our body turned around and get it healthy. How long does it take to turn around different areas of our body from the standpoint of health-wise? It could take up to, 2 to 7 years. 2 to 7 years. But does that mean that it takes that long to notice changes? No. Changes happen faster. I'm talking about total gland and organ, you know, changing itself and becoming new. It's about 7 years. You know, what is the heart? What is the heart? Okay, we know it's designed to pump the blood, right, to everything, the brain and everywhere else. But it's basically a muscle. That's it. So think that if we have an autoimmune problem, what is it going to attack? It's a muscle. It's attacking muscles, joints, nerves, everything. What is, you ever hear of peripheral neuropathy? This is becoming something big where people get a plantar fasciitis. Anybody get that at all? Plantar fasciitis? There's an inflammatory response going on by the body. What do they tell you? Oh, you need orthotics. Doesn't work. It's an inflammatory response by your body. There's something going on. You should. Oh, I stand too long. I sit too long. I mean, all these different things. It's a bunch of baloney. It's all about the body's having an inflammatory response, and now your body's not able to heal and do the job that it should do. Plantar fasciitis is when people get pain in their feet, you know, or the bottom of their heels, and it's really painful. But peripheral neuropathy, many times that's a precursor, pre-stage of what we call peripheral neuropathy. That's when people start getting the burning, loss of sensation, you know, in their extremities, and usually that starts in the feet. Why does it start in the feet? Because it's the furthest point away in the body, right? Because that's where the blood is going to have a little bit more difficult time getting to. So the autoimmune component has to be addressed when we talk about the hypothyroid patients. What percentage of hypothyroid individuals have really an autoimmune problem? What'd I say? About 80%. 80%. That's quite a bit. Okay? So that autoimmune, that's what we're looking at. We're looking at what's starting this whole fire, what's starting this chain of events, what's starting this bombardment where all the glands and organs are being affected. So we talked about the thyroid. Well, you know, the thyroid is a sensitive organ. There's probably more thyroid problems developing now than ever, because the thyroid is most affected. What is it going to be affected? By radiation. That's why they killed off with radioactive iodine. Well, you know, we have this situation happening in Japan, and people think, well, that's far away. It might not have an effect on me. But
Oceanside, right down the road. How about Oceanside, right
there
down
you
the road?
go.
That's right.
So it all has an effect on us. We just, you know, you'll never hear the truth because they don't want to scare you into a shell. But we can crawl in our shells. Well, that doesn't make any sense either. We have to build our bodies up, so our bodies are incredibly designed to help deal with all these things happening, all these things that we're affected by, toxins in our food, you know, the radiation, chemicals. I mean, you know, I was just at this weekend seminar. One of the big things was strawberries, for example. Do you know strawberries? There's methyl bromide in the strawberries. You ever hear of that toxin? No, they're the most toxic thing that you could possibly eat. Strawberries. Well, guess what? I'm not eating strawberries anymore. I don't care if they're organic. I'm not eating strawberries. So we get into this aspect of we are being bombarded from every which way with all different kinds of chemicals and everything like that. We have to get our body so it's no longer accumulating these toxins, but is actually able to get rid of them, you know, handling all this process. And that's one of the parts that we get into is all about the detoxification of your body, getting your body to go through this. Just like osteopenia. You ever hear of that? Osteopenia? Osteoporosis, where the bone is actually getting weaker, you're losing the calcium. Well, guess what? That's all part of the absorption in our gut. So what we now know is this: if we don't have a healthy bacterial flora, and that's one of the tests we do, if we do not have a healthy bacterial flora, there we go, that's an L. If we don't have a healthy bacterial flora, we're not going to have the necessary absorption and breakdown of everything necessary. So what's going to happen? Well, the calcium's not being absorbed. So what have you guys been told? What have you been told? You need more calcium, right? You need more boron, you need more, you know, manganese and that type of thing. It doesn't have anything to do with that. Because see, the food you're eating, the stuff that you're taking in has plenty of calcium. You just are not absorbing and breaking it down, so your body's utilizing it. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
See how that is? So if we don't have a healthy bacterial flora, how's our immune system working? And now it's not. It's working like garbage, right? It's not working well at all. This is essential. There's this good bacteria and the bad bacteria. What do antibiotics do?
They kill the bad bacteria.
Kill the good
Oh, the
too. See?
Mhm.
So they don't just kill the bad. How can they selectively
Yeah,
just
that's
kill
true.
the good, right? Or the bad? They can't. They kill everything off. Well, what's the problem with the food sources now? Every time you eat meat, unless it's organic, there's antibiotics and there's hormones in that meat. So what does that mean? That means that basically the assault is on our bodies, right? Because you're putting these antibiotics, that's why they got so many, what we call, you ever hear this? MRSA?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, methyl resistant Staphylococcus aureus now, that, you know, the people are, that flesh-eating bacteria in that. You think that's gonna be, you think that everyone's gonna be affected by that? Or only a select few are gonna be affected by this?
Potentially everybody.
Could be, but it depends on the immune system. See, because our body, you know, and I always have that hard time with this evolution type of thing, you know, and all that. But our bodies, it's kind of, you know, when people think of stress, what do we think? Good or bad?
Bad.
We think bad, but it's not. Stress is actually good because it helps us develop. Because as human beings, we got this built-in genetic makeup so that we are designed to adapt, okay, to get healthy. Remember DDT? What was it used on? Some insects, right? Well, they find out. Eventually, the insects adapted so that they actually had that part of their life cycle. Did you know that? So it didn't work anymore. So they developed immunity to it. That's what we do. We are adapting. We are evolving genetically so that we can actually get better. But if we have too much load coming in and our bodies aren't ready to handle it because it's already in a suppressed state, what is it going to do? Puts us over the edge. See? But if our bodies are working well, we have that ability to genetically change a bit to become stronger and, you know, healthier. So when we talk about stress, stress is not negative, it's how we handle stress. So if I have someone operating at 100% as far as health-wise, and then we have someone operating at that 20%, right, that we talked about before, who's going to handle the stress better?
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. See that? Come on, let's get common sense into our understanding. This is what we all lost as far as this whole healthcare system. Common sense. Do you want to take a drug for this? Do you want to take the statin lowering drug because you want to drive your cholesterol down? Please don't, you know, this is crazy. We're into this drug situation that's it's creating major problems with us. Our brain is mostly made up of cholesterol. We need the cholesterol for the brain to work. There's a good site, it's called spacedoc.net, and there's a medical doctor that was placed on statin lowering drugs, and it brought him into a state of regression where he was like a 10 or 8-year-old. He was almost like an amnesia state as a result of his medical doctor. This is a flight surgeon, right? He's already a medical doctor. And another MD put him on the statin lowering drug and it put him into this amnesia type of state. And his doctor said, oh no, that's a coincidence, no big deal, you know, just stay on it. And he went off of it, and then he, you know, recovered, and then he went to the doctor again and says, no, we really need to drive your cholesterol down. And they did it again, same thing happened. So there's all kinds of research as far as the drugs and the reactions. That's why I lead you to that state if you have any questions about the statin drugs. Well, what is it doing? It interferes with your body's production of coenzyme Q10. Coenzyme Q10 is essential for the cell. See, every single cell in our body is life. Every single cell. Every single cell also has a thyroid receptor site. What does that mean? Thyroid hormone's got to get to that cell because it's got to turn on the genetic makeup. You understand? Of that cell so it can be nice and healthy. So if our thyroid hormone, or if we have this autoimmune attack going on in our body, how are those cells going to respond? Huh? They're not. They're not doing the job. So how is the body going to be able to turn on the energy of that cell? It's not. Where's your metabolism go? Yeah, it goes down. So now can we, you know, can the body work properly? No, it's not doing anything that it needs to do. So if you want to look at that, that's a good site. Coenzyme Q10 is important for the ATP. You ever hear that? ATP? That's the energy. ATP. within the cells of the cell in the mitochondria within the cells. Okay? So there's a lot that has to do with our body's ability to work and function. And that's why I got into this field, because nobody was doing that. I see now patients that have thyroid cancer and have had their thyroids removed. And unfortunately, they still have the health problems. They still have all these. One patient, the doctor's putting it into a massive hypothyroid state. Now, I'm going to give you some numbers as far as the TSH. Well, the TSH, when you look at things from the standpoint of the reference range, that reference range for TSH might be 0.5 to 4.5. It's a big spread. But the Society for Endocrinologists has determined that the normal level is 1.8 to 3.0. See the difference here? This is really the healthy range. This is the healthy range.
Which part of the thyroid is that?
TSH.
I know, but is it the 1, 2, or 3?
Thyroid stimulating hormone.
1, 2, or 3?
You're looking at T3, T4. Is that what you're familiar with?
Right.
Okay. So this, you got to realize that it's part of the communication going on. Thyroid stimulating hormone. So we'll get into it a little bit in a minute, okay, when we talk about that. But the TSH, we're just talking from lab values.
Okay.
This is the reference range as far as lab values. Now, when you look at the reference range for the lab values, that's how big it is. See how big it is?
Mm-hmm.
Well, someone that's below this 1.8 to 3.0, what are they going to be? Hyper, hypo? Hyper. Isn't that interesting? You would think, well, it's lower, it should be hypo. No, it's hyper. Because your body's utilizing too much of the TSH. So by utilizing more, you're overstimulating, okay? Hypo is higher levels. Why? Because now it's being spilled off in the bloodstream, the TSH. So your thyroid's not utilizing. Understand? If your thyroid's not utilizing, that's hypo. Okay? So when we have this scenario going, here's a patient with thyroid cancer, and you know kind of the ranges now. Their driving are up 50 to 80. 50 to 80. Did you hear that? 50 to 80. What's normal? You know, 1.8 to 3.0. And she's being driven up to 50 to 80. Oh my gosh. She's feeling like crap. Who wouldn't? Oh my gosh. And she's got a young kid. Guess the health of her young kid that's 3 to 4 years old. All kinds of health problems. Sure. Isn't that sad? All kinds of health problems. So she can't lose weight, she can't function, she can't get out of bed, you know, she can't do a lot of stuff that's going on. Why? Because they're trying to keep her in this hypo state. Why? Because she had thyroid cancer and they're concerned about it. Well, that doesn't make any sense to create that kind of imbalance in the body. That's a little extreme. We see patients with thyroid nodules. Have you had your thyroid palpated? Has everyone had their thyroid palpated? Patient today has never had her thyroid palpated. I went ahead and palpated her thyroid today. She goes, no doctor's done it. I said, really? I said, that's the basics. You know, you go in there and you palpate the thyroid and you feel around and see if there's anything in there, you know, any nodules. If there's nodules in the thyroid, what is it telling us? What's it telling us? Common sense. Is it working? There you go. Something's wrong. There you go. There's something's wrong. That's just absolutely not right. If there's nodules on the thyroid. So I got a patient last week. She's got thyroid nodules, and no one is addressing her thyroid. They're just monitoring the nodules and making sure they're benign, you know, not cancerous, and that's it. But there's a thyroid problem, underlying thyroid problem going on. Nobody's looking at that. Isn't that amazing? It just blows me away. So I don't care what kind of doctor, if doctors aren't being doctors anymore, that's a problem in our society. There's a loss of art. Everything is about tests and that. So when I got into this, come to find out, you know, my wife and I never had any children, so she had some fertility problems, right? Endometriosis, another sign of thyroid problems. Yeah, absolutely. Amenorrhea, dysmenorrhea, you know, any problems with the menstrual cycle, that's a problem. you got a heavy flow, you got a kid that's got problems with the menstrual cycle, that's a thyroid problem. Will it be discovered medically? No, it's not going to be discovered medically. And you know what they did to her? They put her on the birth control pill. You know what that did to her hormones? Messed her up. Because all they were concerned about was addressing her symptom of the heavy menstrual flow. I'm the one that said, you know what? Yeah, I think you got endometriosis. She goes, no doctor has ever said that. I said, I think you got endometriosis. Sure enough, she went to the specialist, boom, she got endometriosis, right? They go in, they try to do laparoscopy, right, to clean out the endometriosis, kind of like spider webs all over the uterus, you know, and ovaries and that. She's in the stage 4. Do you know what stage 4 is? You know what's worse than stage 4? Nothing. What's the worst? Stage 1, 2, 3, and 4. She's in stage 4. And so, studying more and more, I said, man, you got a thyroid problem. I know she's got a thyroid problem, so I run Hashimoto's test on her. Boom, she got Hashimoto's. So she brings this information to the medical doctor because I do a full, complete panel on her, right? Do a full, complete panel on her, and her thyroid antibodies are up, which indicates she's got Hashimoto's, which we know is an autoimmune thyroid, right? Doctor goes, yeah, you got a small case of, you know, Hashimoto's, but don't worry about it. Is there such a thing as being a little pregnant? Huh? That's no such thing. You either got it or you don't got it, you know? So the thing is, you can ignore that, but again, that's because they don't know what to do with these autoimmune states. What do we have to do with the autoimmune? What do we have to do with the autoimmune state? What do we have to find out? What do we have to find out? From all that I've given you, kind of led you. What do we have to do? We have to find out what's causing it, don't we? And that's what I said earlier. Remember, holistic, alternative, you know, endocrinology. That's where the functional medicine. That's why we study functional medicine, because we want to find out what's causing it. We don't want to just deal with the symptom. Are you going to ultimately get healthy again? Are you going to regain your health if we just try to deal with your symptoms? No way. See, that's what's not happening. Now, Dr. Oz has brought, I like Dr. Oz because he's brought a lot of light to, you know, this understanding. But he's basically practicing the supplement of the month club right now.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
He is. So you got this problem, your hormones, take maca. You got this, you know, blood sugar, you take alpha-lipoic acid. I mean, that's, we're doing a shotgun method, okay? We don't want to get into that. But it's good because it's making people a little bit more aware. But boy, the more you get on the internet, I think the more you get confused, huh? You know, misdirected, you know, boom, you're out the dark. So it's a matter of finding out where things are coming from. All right. Now, this we can get into so much a bit more. How are we doing time-wise? Because I know that
we're at 43 minutes.
But see, understand this. This is why we do what we do. Okay. Here you got the brain. And like the hypothalamus. You've heard of the hypothalamus? Okay. I'm just going to abbreviate that. And then this is going to go to the pituitary. The pituitary is also in the brain, like you were,
Yeah, the base.
you know, wondering.
It's
and then we
amazing
got,
what it controls.
Yeah, and then we got the thyroid, right? And then we got all these different areas like the liver. We got peripheral tissues. Peripheral tissues. We got the gut. All these different areas, because what the hypothalamus is going to do, it's going to send this message down. TRH, right? TRH, thyroid releasing hormone. And the pituitary is going to send the TSH. Pituitary stimulates the thyroid for TSH. Now the thyroid is going to produce T4, and it produces that in the percentage of 93%. It produces T3, 7%. Well, guess what? Your body only utilizes T3. But what does it make? T4. Look how much T4 it's making, right? But what has to happen? Well, there has to be a conversion. So guess what's going to happen? About 60% of that T4 is going to be converted in the liver into T3. Some of it in the gut and the peripheral tissues. Where does it ultimately have to go? all that T3, because what is it doing? Remember, it's activating those cells. It's turning on the genetic code within every cell, every gland, every tissue, every organ in our body. Remember that? So we have to have that T3 that's going to work. Now, the body, of course, is amazing because it's going to be able to control the levels. And if it has, if it's going to spill out, it doesn't need a T3, it just spills it out. That's all it does. You know, if it doesn't utilize it, it just spilled out. So when we look at this complicated system, what's going to affect it? Well, here's what's going to affect it. Is your blood sugar. I wish I had a different color. Blood sugar regulation will affect this conversion. How about the liver? How about if the liver's not working well? You know what's a major problem with a lot of thyroid patients? And they don't even know it? It's a gallbladder. How many people have had their gallbladder removed or had gallbladder problems? There you go. Did they ever say that that's associated with your thyroid? No. They never say that. Isn't that amazing? But that's what happens. You get a sluggish thyroid. The thyroid's not working well. The thyroid, remember, is metabolism, right? To turn on, to get the action going. So how can the gallbladder work and do what it needs to do? Because what the gallbladder is just a storage center for bile. What's bile? Bile is to break down fats. So if the gallbladder is not working well, what is it developing? Gallstones, right? There you go. If the gallbladder is not working properly and the bile's not healthy, guess what happens? You're constipated. How many people have been constipated? Big time. See that? How that all is related? Isn't that amazing? You know more than 4-year medical students. Isn't that sad? Really, from this class, you know more than 4-year medical students. You think they teach us in chiropractic school? They don't teach us in chiropractic. Do you think they teach us in medical school? No. I mean, nobody understands this, and that's where you know we go to classes and thousands of hours that we've done to learn this, all these different mechanisms, and then look at the different things. Now, cortisol. You ever hear of cortisol? Cortisol is going to affect that system as well. What's cortisol? Well, that's produced from your adrenal glands, right? Stress. There you go. How many people have a hard time falling asleep? Boom, boom, cortisol problems. How many people have a hard time staying asleep? Boom, boom, cortisol problems. See that? Isn't that cool though? Isn't this cool? This is exciting. This, you know, this is a passion that we have because it's neat. You know, you can really change people's lives around, you know, by knowing what to do, where to go. But it's like you're like a puzzle, right? That's scattered in every different direction. What do we need to do? Put the pieces of the puzzle together. You know, what was that? Humpty Dumpty, remember when he broke, fell off the wall or something like that? Was broken to pieces, and now you're putting the pieces of the puzzle together. You know, but that's what they say when you say practice. We don't stop learning, you know. That's why I attend these. I want to listen to these other doctors, these other PhDs. I want to hear what they have to say. So I'm not studying just one, you know, someone emailed me, do you follow the study of this doctor, that doctor? I've studied under them, but that, you know what? There's nothing more important than the clinical realm, meaning you work with patients and you're really getting to know your uniqueness, you know? Everybody's a little bit unique in how you're going to do this whole process. But really, getting healthy is dependent on what?
Me.
There you go. It is dependent on you. Exactly. You're good, Marla. You're right on. It is dependent on you. Because we can only lead you so far. How healthy do you want to be? How healthy do you want to be? 100%. Yeah. Well, that's hopefully what we all want to be. But that's a journey. I'm still doing it. You know, I'm still working on my body. You know, I'm not stopping. So I'm 58 years of age. See, I didn't say old. See,
I don't say old.
Good. I'm glad.
Getting older.
I hate
I'm
when
old.
There you go. I hate when people say that. I'm, 58 years old. No, you're 58 years or whatever your age is. You're not old. You're only old here because you've really put yourself in that position. You know. So understand, you can be as healthy as you want to be. It's up to you. You know. And having the zest for life. I mean, we don't know how long we're going to be here. I mean, I could die tomorrow, But the reality is I want to have my zest for life. I want to have the energy. I want to be able to do what I want to do, because I can do it. I don't want to be, that unhealthy. So blood sugar regulation, cortisol, hormones are going to affect that. All these different things. We know now, what have we gone into a society of less and less fat, right? Because fat does what? Does fat make us fat? Huh? That's what we've been told, right?
It solidifies.
Yeah, fat makes you fat, and it doesn't. Fat actually is a major protector. We need to have the fat. Remember I said the brain is mostly cholesterol? That's fat. So it's a good quality fat. Now, does that mean that you should eat potato chips and get your fat from there? Refined foods, processed foods? No, because those are high in sugars and high in these bad fats. But the reality is, we need olive oil, right? Avocados, coconut oil, all these different good oils, fish oils. We need all that. We need meats, we need good healthy meats, not the antibiotic hormone-fed beef everybody's eating. Check it out. Here's what you want to do. I know you guys are young. Get any kind of chicken you want. Then I want you to buy an organic chicken. And I want you to cook them both up. Look at the fat, the color of the fat. Look at how it tasted. You'll notice that. Just like with an apple. You get an organic apple, and you look at the appearance of an organic apple versus an apple that's not organic. You'll see wax and all that, the shininess on this, that's non-organic. That's non-organic. On the organic, you'll see it's kind of dull because all the chemicals are putting on this stuff. Well, remember, everything you put in your mouth, your body's having a process. And if our body's already unhealthy, that processing, that's a lot of burden on our body. Okay? So, that's basically kind of just a little enlightenment, because I think it's probably an hour longer. I gave a talk yesterday. I had to yell at this corporation because they had some fans and I was giving help. If you have friends or family, we try to do this. We try to do this once or twice a month, actually. We're doing it more and more. I mean, you can see that the thyroid is an issue, but I don't care if anybody's got another autoimmune problem. They're not getting the help that they want. They can always come to our one of our seminars. But we believe that people need to understand this, and it's only going to be you telling other people, about this, because you usually know other people that have similar health, challenges that you have. See how I said challenges? I didn't call you a disease, I mean, that's crazy, because it is a challenge. Well, the challenge is, let's go ahead and change things up. So now we're going to give you an opportunity, okay? Some of you that haven't been in here, we're going to make an offer to you, right? Because here's the thing, the original chiropractor, D.D. Palmer, said procrastination was a thief of health. Did you ever hear that terminology? Totally is. Totally is. What we're going to do is invite you in for 2 visits, okay? During those 2 visits, what we need to do is get back all your information. What does that mean? We want your blood tests. We want other tests that you run. I don't want MRIs in that. All I want is the results, if that's what you have, and other things. I just want results. Recent blood tests, other things that are going on. Pardon me?
How recent?
How recent? Going back probably a couple of years. Because we'll look for patterns if you have them that long. We'll look for patterns because usually things are getting progressively worse, and we'll be able to see that pattern. It's funny, this gal that was in earlier today, she does something through life extension. I think that was Marilyn Harvey Diamond. I don't know if you ever hear of them. They wrote a book, I don't know if it wasn't
Eat right for your blood.
It wasn't. That was Diadamo. Yeah. Anyways, forget it. So what I'm trying to say is that here she's having a workup that she thinks is so fantastic. But what the thing is we got to look at inflammatory markers. We've actually changed in the period of time of doing this, 4 or 5 years. So we do different tests now because we're looking for different things as far as inflammatory markers. Any tests that you have. So the first visit is a consultation. So we're going to sit down and we're going to pick your brain and we're going to go over things, How many antibiotics have you used? How many, what type of infections did you have? What did you have going on when you were young? Did you have any traumas? Did you have any injuries? It's interesting. We got a guy that's coming from the valley. He's got gastritis. How many people have gone to our YouTube channel? You need to go to our YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/Valentine Chiro. ENTINECHIRO, all one word. You'll see a lot of different testimonials. You'll see testimonials with ulcerative colitis. You'll see testimonials with diverticulitis. You'll see testimonials with the hyperthyroid, the Graves' disease. You'll see gastritis. You'll see people that have been everywhere, for these different conditions. So this one guy saw our YouTube testimony on another guy that's a mechanical engineer that works for Boeing. He was out of work for 3 months. Because what was he having? He was having a referred pain. And they didn't even know it was referred pain. He was having his left side was burning in here, right? And it was causing him anxiety and depression. Well, who wouldn't have that kind of stuff if you have something that you don't know what's causing it? So he was off work that period of time. He took a leave of absence. We went ahead and found out this guy had celiacs. About 35, no, he's about, I guess he looks younger, but he's about 40-some years of age. He's got celiac, right? He eats great and everything else, but he was eating the wrong things, and of course he was having an inflammatory response and was causing this referred pain. A year before that, he was on Nexium. You ever hear of Nexium? Proton pump inhibitor, right? Now let me ask you this, common sense again. As we age, does our body work as well as when we're younger? No. Does acid production, do you think it's better or you think it's worse as we go through this aging process? It's worse. Why would we reduce the acid production? Why would we think we need to reduce the acid production when the acid production is less as we get older, right? As we go through this aging process. That's not the problem. The problem is there's no digestion happening. It's a state of what we call putrefaction. You ever hear of that state? Things are rotting. So now we got the gases that come up and there's a burning.
That can
Heartburn.
cause you to be anemic.
Yeah, big time because you're not absorbing. So that's your major body's line defense. So understand the repercussions. We're getting the repercussions again. I take Nexium, which is a proton pump inhibitor, to reduce the acid in my stomach, right? My first line of defense is my acid in my stomach to kill off parasites, viruses, bacteria, fungus, yeast, and everything else. If I reduce the acid, what's going to happen? These critters they're finding a good home in there, a good environment. What is that doing? That's inflaming the immune response, causing the attack. That's another thing we look at, okay? So, see how I go off these tangents? Okay. Tangent, okay. So we do a consult. We're going to do an evaluation because what are we going to do? We're going to check your brain. Why? What controls your body? The brain. See that? There's a gal in today. I checked her brain. Her brain is not working properly. No, I'm serious though, it's nothing, I mean, it's kind of funny, but it's not because the brain's not working the way it should work. If the brain's not working, how can the hypothalamus communicate to the pituitary?
Right.
How can the pituitary communicate to the thyroid? Isn't that common sense, Barbara? Huh? Yeah. See? So we do that evaluation. We do a brain evaluation because we want to see how your brain is working. And of course, we might take x-rays because the interesting thing is that the neck isn't important. Guess what? The brain communicates down through what we call the spinal cord. The spinal cord is guarded and protected by these spinal vertebrae. These spinal vertebrae, in between them are the nerves that go on to control specific glands, tissues, organs, and cells. So if we have that communication from the spinal cord to the thyroid